Hey, Jim Toscano here, and welcome to my Monday night live stream, Filling in the Grooves. And I have a special guest tonight, good buddy of mine that we're going to be talking to, the funky drummer Jim Payne. And before I do that, I just want to mention a few things. If you want to follow what I do, my little Linktree QR code is up in the corner of the screen. You can just bloop, catch that with your phone. and my mailing list is up in the corner. You can grab that with your phone, and I want to mention the companies that really help me out, which is Sabian Cymbals, Prologix practice pads, Offset pedals, Black Magic Designs for my lovely video switcher and all that crazy gear, and check out the new blackout pad from Prologix with the flex rim. This thing is amazing. Lots of resistance. It will make you work hard. So my guest tonight, Jim Payne, man, I met Jim a while ago. We're going to talk about kind of how we met up, but he is considered the Buddy Rich or the Billy Cobham of funk drumming by Jazz Time magazine. And he's had a really long career as a drummer, educator, producer, collaborator with lots of people in the jazz and funk world. And he's a faculty at Berklee College of Music, where he teaches R&B and funk drumming. And he also has a School of Funk, online School of Funk, which is a very cool platform. We're going to talk about that. And he taught in New York City for a long time. And now Jim's out on the West Coast, but of course he's teaching globally all over the place in this crazy online world that we work in. And he's performed with a lot of great people: Maceo Parker, Fred Wesley, Pee Wee Ellis, Michael Brecker, Dave Liebman, lots of people. We're going to get into all that too. So without any further ado, let me bring in the funky drummer, my buddy, Jim Payne. There he is. Look at this man.
Jim, how are you, man?
Good to have you tonight, man. It's been a long time coming, right?
I know. Change the new era, of communication, you know.
That's right. You and I were like talking for a really long time, like almost, it was like Fridays for a long time, getting some tech together, right?
That's right.
But I think, you and I met at PASIC a bunch of years ago.
Yes, that's right. We were both at some concert, and we somehow started talking to each other.
Yeah, I think Dom Famularo made the connection, and he was like, Jim Payne, you have to know Jim Toscano. And Jim Toscano, you have to know Jim Payne. And he put us together. Wait, here's my little Dom. Ready?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can hear Dom. Check this out.
Come on, Dom, are you there?
Is it going to go?
I don't know. I play the drums. I like Italian food. I like to fish.
That's my soundbite.
That's great, man. Dom is so cool. He's the most positive guy I know. He's like he'll get you to smile.
Oh my God, it's infectious. He's a great guy. He's really been my mentor for many years, and I'm so glad that he put you and I together.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So we met at PASIC, and then I think we followed up later on, and it was really about kind of getting social media and stuff together. But
right.
And I'm going to go way back from the beginning with you. But what I want to ask you about is, because you were putting your School of Funk, your new School of Funk together, because you had an older platform, right?
Right.
And then we were sort of moving it to this new platform, which I was kind of helping out with a little bit, and just speak to that. Like, what is this School of Funk platform, and what's new in that world?
Well, I put it together as an intermediate funk course, basically, on the model of Berklee that I teach online. And it has each lesson. I think there's 24 lessons, which is quite a bit. Each lesson has a lesson plan, and then you go down. So what's this all about? It could be ghost notes. It could be some facet of linear drumming. You get the concept with the beginning, the outline, and then you have videos of me demonstrating stuff, and you have several of my books are involved, and there'll be exercises from there, and then it scrolls down really nicely, and so I had a great guy, Tom Clayson, did it for me. He's Nashville. We were just talking about Nashville.
Yeah.
And then at the end, you have tracks to play to, and some of the tracks, I have made up myself. Other tracks you play on top of some hit tunes, and then after that, that's called the workbook section. And you can go online, and it's a subscription model. You can, pay basically $30 a month, and you get access to everything. Plus, there's a lot of bonus material that I keep putting on, different stickings and stuff that I'm working on. Whatever I'm working on, I'll stick it on there. And there's a community as well, a Facebook community. So
Yep.
it's all put together now very, nicely. With Tomas did it for me, and it's doing great. I have students from basically. You can also if you want once a month you can send me a video, and I will send you a video back of me commenting on you as you play along. So that's a really cool feature. I also have like a personal study model, but at this point I've got a lot of students, so you'd have to email me and we talk about that. But basically the subscription model is working great. I'm really happy about it.
Sweet. And I was really excited to be in kind of on the ground level when you were getting that all together and uploading all the videos to YouTube with you and
Right.
so being kind of on the ground floor of it, seeing it come together was really, really exciting. And there's great material in there. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, and I think it's interesting, and I think it'll be interesting to the listeners, is that you had all this footage where you were filming in France.
Right.
So
right.
so you're like a bi-coastal, well, not bi-coastal, but bi-country. So
What is the word for that? Yeah, I don't know. Bicontinental.
bicontinental kind of dude. So speak to that. What's going on in France, and just give us a little background on that.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of touring in Europe, a lot of with a group called Slickophonics, which was a great sort of an avant-garde funk band. Ray Anderson on trombone, and Steve Ellison on saxophone, Mark Elias on bass, and we had a great group and a great run over there. We played a lot in France, a lot in Germany, all over Europe, and so I just I speak some French. I had some French in school, so that worked out. And then my son was doing a kind of a language course, and he went over there, and we met the teachers. And one of the teachers said, "Well, why don't you spend a couple of weeks in our summer home, so down in southern France?" So we did that, and then we kept doing that, and it's like another month, and it was like. So here I am with the, practice pads and thinking about, well, gee, where am I going to play? It's a really tight village, like. So finally I met this carpenter who said and I just happened to ask him, well, do you know any place I can play, And he said, this guy from Belgium, I just renovated what they call a bergerie, which is like where the shepherds stayed, and the sheep were running around outside. And so he had just kind of renovated it, but it turned out his wife didn't really like it, so it was okay. It was a beautiful place, a little, it's not much bigger than this, but so I knocked on his door and I said, hey, I'm a musician. He said, okay, cool, check it out. And I've been doing that for 10 years, and he's never charged me a dime.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Out there in the middle of nowhere, well, you see in the videos, you get the concept. There's cows around. So
there's a picture. Sorry to cut you up, but there's a picture from the drums perspective with a bunch of cows in the window.
Yeah, I know. They're curious cows. It was unbelievable. I'm playing the drums, and they're actually like kind of looking in at me. Several of them.
Oh, sorry about that. We just got somebody just subbed my channel. Somebody subscribed, and so it pops up over the screen. It's a new feature that I threw in there, and I've never seen it before. That's really funny. Sorry. But so the cows were checking out the drumming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And they were just like people looking in the window, And I've had sheep. One time the farmer had a sheep out there as well, But so it's really cool. There's no electricity. So when my computer runs down, that's the end of the day, or I'm just go out and play the drums for, whatever I want to do. But it's been great because I get out there and it's like there's really nothing to do but play the drums or make, videos for students or make, I did my books out there. I did,
It's amazing.
Basically, advanced funk drumming was done right there. And so it's a great place. And I'm very fortunate that my buddy lets me do that. I haven't been able to go this year, but I'm hoping that, maybe in the fall we'll get to go over there. But there's some great musicians over there too. Some great players,
Yeah, there's some footage of you playing. I think you guys were playing in the street somewhere.
Yeah, I got into that. Then that's fun too, you know. Just put the drums out there, and the day they have the market, you know, and I would have little kids come up and play, you know, or dance. You know, that if they're dancing, you know, that's you're doing the right thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know anything about funk or whatever. They just hear the drums and they start moving. You say, yeah, okay, man, I must be doing the right thing, you know. So that's one thing that people don't necessarily put together. That dancing and drums are like right next to each other. You know, I mean, let's face it. You know, Buddy Rich was a dancer. You know, Steve Gadd was a dancer.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen him dance, I finally in my Berkeley class, I had some kind of a stiff people. You know, so this semester, one of the assignments was to put on Boogie on Reggae Woman. You know, if you can't dance to that, Stevie Wonder. You know, Boogie on Reggae Woman. Anyway, and so everybody had to video themselves dancing, and it was great because you know they just kind of loosened up. I have this whole thing about trying. You know, you're not like you know trying
Right.
to play like this. You know, you're trying to get your
Put your
not that
body
you
in
have
it.
to move around, but you have to feel something down low. You know, like you know I'm rooted, I'm moving. You know, you just watch. You know, watch Steve Gadd or watch Bernard Purdie or Clyde Stubblefield or Vinnie Colaiuta or any of them. You know, they all have their own, you know, maybe their own little motion, but whatever it is, you got to think about people got to dance to this stuff, you know. So
Got to
and
dance behind the
you're
drums,
leading
man.
the dance. Yeah, you're leading the dance. So go for it.
Yeah, man. J.R. Robinson always said that. Dance is from behind the drum kit, right?
Aha! Wow, I love that guy.
Yeah, man.
He's something else.
So you know what? I mean, I'm gonna get into the books soon, but I want to take it all the way back. And
Okay.
so I want to know what is the moment, if you can kind of pinpoint it something, but what is the one thing that made you go, oh man, I'm gonna play the drums. I got to do this.
Right. Um, well, I think it's probably maybe it's a couple of moments. One was when I was in like an eighth grade, and they had a kind of a thing in the gym where a lot of people played different instruments. Sort of they like demonstrated them, you know. And at that point, I heard the trumpet and the accordion, different instruments, you know, and I thought this is great. I really love this. In fact, to really get into it, I like the accordion. So that was my first instrument. I played
Ah,
the accordion for like a year and a half, and you know, got something out of it. Where I lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which had a big Polish community, and they were like into the accordion. So anyway, I did that, and then I wasn't practicing very well. I must say, I was done practicing at all. So my teacher, she sent me to her son, who also played the accordion. And so I would go to the practice room, and I'd sort of screw up the thing, you know. And he was also a drummer. And so he had a little practice pad in the corner, you know. And he said, well, okay, you didn't practice, so practice now, you know. So I'm practicing my accordion, and he's like playing on the drum pad. And I'm saying, hey, I like this is cool, you know. Let me do that, you know.
let's switch.
Yeah. So I got my drum pad, traded in the accordion, got a set of Ludwigs, you know. I just got a bass drum, snare drum, and then some cymbals. And so that was kind of a moment there. And then, you know, I think, you know, when I played in some rock bands. I played in the Deltrons and the Soul Congress, a bunch of different bands. But when I was in college, I went to the Apollo, and I went there a lot, you know, with a friend of mine, and it was very very cool. I mean, they would just welcome us in there, and I saw everybody, you know, and I saw, of course, you know, I saw James Brown, and I saw BB King, and then basically, you know, when I had hair, it stuck up on the back of my head. It was, you know, how that thing happens on your neck, you know, and like all of a sudden it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
and that was it, man. Like I was like, this is it, you know. I was just completely knocked out, and I said, whatever it's the soul music, you know. It's like people expressing themselves in a very strong, powerful way, and I said, what can be better than that, you know? Let's find out what that's all about, you know. And the drums just, you know, were the heartbeat for it. So I used to go there. I'd take my lunch. Right, I could sit in the balcony, wherever. I'd take my lunch, and at the Apollo they had show after show. They had like
Right.
4 shows a day. So I would go in there, and they had a movie before each show, which was kind of a corny western or something. And I watched that and see the show, and then I watched the movie again and see and eat my lunch and see the show again. By that time I had to catch the train home, but that was really my right after that. It's like this is it.
So you were coming down from Connecticut to the Apollo to see the show. You bring your lunch,
Right.
check it out, see some shows, and then take the train back.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, man, that's awesome.
And I did that a lot. And then there was the Christmas show, and there was the gospels. At that time, they had like, we got all pigeonholed. I get pigeonholed. Funk drummer. Of course.
Right.
You sort of start out. Basically, you start out playing rock, whatever, and you get into funk, and you get into jazz. At that time at the Apollo, they would have like Horace Silver, Groove Holmes, James Brown.
Wow.
Or they'd have the Swan Silvertones, and another jazz group, and then a funk group. It was like so cool in that respect. They just had good music.
Right. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's an amazing opportunity. So that was
It really
during
was.
college, you said?
Yeah, that was college. That was college.
Now at that
That-
time, so you're starting to get inspired by this music. You're hearing funk and soul and thinking like, I want in, right? So what was your first sort of experience to play either funk or soul or something that really was like hitting you here?
Yeah. Well, it was in college. We had a band called the let's see, what band was that? It was the Duquesnes. It was called the Duquesnes. Nothing to do with the beer, but we liked the idea of the name. And we had 4 in the rhythm section, and we had 3 singers.
Nice.
And the singers were some Afro-American dudes who lived in New Haven, which has a big, strong Afro-American community as well. And we met them, and they had a group already, 3 of them. Actually, one of them was related to the Five Satins that had a big hit way back when, the doo-wop thing, who I ended up playing with as well. But they had a group, the 3 singers, and so we did, all the hits of the day. It was a cover band basically, but we could do all the background singing that you wanted, in the soul world, and we weren't really too much into the doo-wop thing, but the whole it was funky, that was it. And then we played every college in the East basically on the weekends. We went up to Dartmouth, down to Brown, down to Princeton, all the Ivy League colleges. We would get in we had this car, we called it the Goat. I don't know how it made it up there in the wintertime, way up there in Dartmouth, but they were so hungry for music up there. I mean, they were like, it was a great audience.
Wow.
So that was how I really got into it. Then it was like, now what do I do after this? I want to really be a musician, and I'm in college. I'm supposed to be studying, history and economics and all this, and and my parents are like, well, we gave him an education. Now he wants to play music, like, damn, So my mother's fault. She played the piano, and
Did she play
so-
professionally, or is it more of a
No.
hobby?
More of a hobby, but she came from a family that in Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh, where the entertainment was the family played,
Right.
My grandfather played the fiddle, and somebody else in the family played something else, and they sat around. And there was no internet, obviously, but they made their own entertainment. I mean, you've heard of these family groups, So that was what she did, and then she played the piano and got me into it, and I messed around. Since I had the accordion, I messed around on the piano too. But so that's how I really got started, and then I couldn't stop after that.
That was it. You found the calling.
I mean, who could stop after seeing James Brown and B.B. King? I mean, I don't
So
know.
what's the first album that you bought with your own money that was sort of in that realm that just blew your mind?
It was James Brown, Pure Dynamite, it was called. It was a live at the Regal Theater in Chicago,
Wow.
and that was like so exciting. I mean, there's live at the Apollo, which was that may be the first one that I got, which a lot of people, and that's with um, Clayton Filia on drums, who's kind of an unknown guy. He was he's in my book, Give the Drummer Some. I
Yeah.
interviewed him. He was living down in Florida at the time, but that record, Pure Dynamite, was so powerful. There's another live concert that it didn't get out that much, but it was they overdubbed some applause. They did some stupid things on it, but
Huh.
the music on it was just unbelievable. Just so exciting. So that I played that over and over again. I have it's like taped up because the edges are all an album. The edges are all broken through. And so that's the one I still have. I don't know what to do with my LPs. What do you do with your LPs, man? I mean, do you have
Man,
a lot of them?
I got to tell you what I did. And then there's a part of me that's like, why did you do that? But I took hundreds of records and I gave the entire collection away
Okay.
to this guy, and his kid came. The kid was a young kid. He got all
Hmm.
excited, all these different records. I guess, the kid was just, understanding what vinyl was, right? And
Yeah.
I gave away hundreds of records. These guys took almost everything. The only thing they didn't take was the jazz and the Zappa stuff. So all of
Uh-huh.
that stuff I gave to a different guy that came and picked up all of that, because I
Hmm.
figured at that point I have everything is on digital, and I just knew I wasn't going to start putting those records on again. And even though there's still a part of me that's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Too
but
bad. I know. I know.
I feel good that I
I-
gave it away, though. You know what I mean?
That's it. There's a place here where you can, they'll buy your collection, but I think, I mean, I must say the same thing with drums. Now that I moved from my bigger house to a smaller house, and I have some drums that I haven't played in a long time, and I thought, well, I'm just going to give them to some kid who needs.
Nice.
I got a friend who's going to take care of that. So yeah, rather than trying to get some dough out of them, but I got a lot of LPs too, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'll find a place.
Yeah, I don't have the
I
space
bought a
to.
new turntable just so I could play them. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a used turntable, but anyway, yeah, it's tough when all those things that kind of got you in the very beginning. You don't want to let go of them, but you've already done that. You've done it, been there, done that, and so
That's
time
it.
to move on.
Yeah, man, for sure. Well, and the crazy thing, with the James Brown stuff, mentioning Clayton Filio, and it's like every drummer brought something different to the table, and it's so cool that you have really studied the stuff and broke it down in your books, and it's like if you listen to Melvin play compared to Jabo, compared to Zig, it's like everybody brought something a little bit different to the table. And
Yeah.
like Melvin's thing was like so stripped down and super straight almost in a way. It
Mhm.
had a swing to it, but it was like real simple. And then you
Right.
listen to the Zig stuff, and it's like, I mean, you listen to the Jabo stuff and Stubblefield stuff, and it's just like, whoa, man, there's such depth. And
Yeah, right.
it almost looks like everybody kind of built upon each other, right, in a way.
Oh, they did. I mean, they did. I know that talking to Clyde Stubblefield, he was like, well, I got into the band, whatever. Apparently, when he started, there were 5 drummers on the bandstand, and eventually it got narrowed down to Jabo and him. But Clayton Filio was still around. He actually ended up driving the truck for some reason. This story, James Brown story, is many faceted story, But Clyde told me that he was, he learned the show they would go to a bar, him and Clayton, and they would drink. Clayton always had well, anyway, that's another story. But Clayton they would sing the show, and Clayton would punch Jabo when the hits were coming in, and they're sitting there at the bar singing this thing. So, like you say, Jabo and Clyde built on what Clayton did, and sort of everybody put a different thing. Clyde was real super strong cat, just bulldozer type groove, and Jabbo had more coming from a jazz thing. Jabbo, you know, played behind Little Junior Parker and Bobby Bland,
Right.
out of Texas with the that guy Don Roby who produced a lot of stuff, and that was a jazz band really Jabbo was doing, and it was still a holdover from the big bands in that they had big horn sections,
Right.
and but it was soul and funky type stuff, really really great. So Jabbo brought that. James Brown kept asking Jabbo to come to and play with them, and Jabbo was playing. I forget. I think he was playing with BB King or something. Finally, James Brown had this thing. He'd send somebody out and say, well, "When are you going to come?" And blah blah blah. And so eventually, Jabbo said, "Okay, I'll do it." So he came with him, and then they had the two of them, Jabbo and Clyde, and it was a tremendous, duo. But they did not play together. It wasn't like the Allman Brothers or other groups that might have two drummers playing.
Right.
Uh, James would just point to one or the other when he wanted them to play.
Yeah. I
And it
saw some
could be a
footage
mix-
where, they're sitting on stage and like Jabbo's playing and Clyde's just hanging out watching. And then they switched off and it's like, oh, wow. But when you look at the early footage, there were guys playing together.
Yeah.
Like when they had those multiple drummers.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen much of that, but I talking to them, I know that they played together on the hits.
Right,
know,
right.
Bah, bah, and there'll be one guy playing the cymbal, and the snare drum, and the other guy's just still keeping the groove going. So they did do that, accented, parts of things, but they didn't play the grooves
Right.
on top of each other.
That's like
which
early
can be
overdub.
done, but you have to do it right.
Yeah. Oh, man.
So. Oh, that's a whole history. Of course, I've been into it big time, but very very inspiring when you think of the what shall I say the getting 300 days a year playing, mostly in a different place every night.
Right.
So they play, and then they have the option of packing up and going to the next gig in the middle of the night, or packing up, staying in the motel, and then getting up in the morning and going to the gig.
Right.
Really, really rough deal. It wasn't like there was a lot of roadies and like it is today. It's like
Right.
you show up in the gig and the drums are set up, etc. Like that. So they were very strong guys. Of course, it was very inspiring to play that stuff all the time. But if you play like whatever on the weekends at the Apollo, 4 or 5 shows in a row, that's rough,
Yeah.
And the band and the drums, as you and I and all the people watching know, it's physical, you got to play, man. You're not like waiting for the horn part to come in. You just, you're waiting, you're doing your thing. So it's inspiring to know that those guys did that, and it's inspiring to know how smart they are. They knew what was going on. They knew how to handle it.
Yeah.
Very, very wise people. When I hung out with Jabbo and Clyde, it was like these people are really, sharp. High-ended folks. They take it all in, and they can, they can deal with it.
Yeah, and they had to because it was a tough business at that point. Tough stuff, right, happening
Yeah.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, they couldn't get, had trouble getting a hotel and all that. And there was deep playing in the South. You hear all
Yeah.
these stories. And they're true. That's it. To get a place to sleep. It was rough. It was definitely rough. And James was a very a real taskmaster.
Yeah.
There's a lot there too, but the band was one of the best, as far as really, and their legacy goes on, and look at hip hop. Look at the grooves that they created, and look at the stuff that's been sampled, and
Yeah.
all that. It's all. I'm so happy about it. I thought, funk's a style. It's going to go away. It's going to be something else. It's still happening, in different ways, but the grooves that those guys created and that other people are creating today are based on that R&B, soul, funk music, and it's great to hear them.
Yeah, yeah, and then there's guys, like Adam Deutsch and Stanton Moore that are running bands that are totally influenced by this stuff from early on, and it's great seeing new music coming out that has the footprint of the past, standing on the shoulders of all these giants that came before, right? So,
Right, right. And the cool thing also is like with Adam Deitch and Stan, these different cats is, you know, again, as you were saying before, they built on this and they built on it and they're, taking it to the next level, and that's, all these the different things that they do that are, kind of coming in and out, different styles, different grooves. They're taking the roots and they're moving them on. That's what I try to have my students do. It's like, it's about you got to learn from, you got to learn from stick control. You got to learn from, snare drum rudiments. All these different things. Yeah, take all that in, and work on it. And then move it on to the next level. And it's so inspiring when I have a student who's got some different stuff, and I, wow, where'd you get that? And I used to sort of think, well, no, I want them to do this, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, what was that? Like, that's something new, like let's do that, So it's great to see that the style and the roots are moving on, and it's great to see younger people getting into it and taking it to the next level. That's the thing. I mean, you want to do your own thing, right? I mean, it's hard, you play in a cover band and they want you to do exactly, then you do that. But when it comes down to it, people want to hear what you have to say, because what you have to say is you, and it can't be any more rooted, it can't be any more true, valid, if it's your own thing.
that's it. And that's like the highest compliment is when somebody says, "Hey, man, I could tell that that's your playing, on that." Or
Oh, you
that
can tell, right,
they
right.
hear that personality come through. It's like, oh man, I'd rather hear that any day than, that they recognize sort of my feel than anything about chops or any of that other stuff. It's like,
Right. Oh man,
it's like that footprint, right?
yeah. If you can get to that, I mean, and a lot of jazz musicians or whatever you hear, say, oh yeah, that's Mingus, or that's Horace Silver, or
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's Elvin. I mean, you can tell Elvin, right? I mean, Elvin Jones is like
Tony, yeah.
Tony Williams or Billy Higgins, and in funk you can tell.
You
Oh,
know when
that's
it's Garibaldi.
yeah, right. And that's he's got his own thing and he developed it, purposely, and so that's a great inspiration as well. And he's been a great inspiration to me.
Yeah, man, I
And
know it.
we're buddies, and yeah, he's one of the cats. He said, "What am I gonna?" And he said he went to a James Brown thing, and he got inspired. And then the Tower of Power, they realized that, well, I don't have to play the backbeat all the time.
Right.
And if people were afraid if you don't play the backbeat, people aren't going to dance. Well, they got off the backbeat completely, and the people danced like crazy.
That's
I
it.
mean, it's all about the relationship with the bass player and the guitar player and the drums, and then you got an engine happening, and if it's tight, people are going to jump up and dance.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, in that band, in Tower, it's like the bass saxophone or Barry lines are so funky that it's like even if the drums dropped
Right.
out, people would be dancing.
The doctor, man.
It's it.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
he's
crazy.
one of the original cats, in the band, and it was like, oh yeah, he's amazing. And I don't know how do they, talk about James Brown? That's the same, sort of, not quite the same, but they're still kicking, and they're kicking. I saw David about a year ago and went backstage, and the doc was like, after the show, I mean, like he's standing up playing that baritone, a lot, and then so
Hell
it's
yeah.
tough, man. It's tough.
Well, I'll tell you
But
what, man. I think we should check in with the chat real quick before we get into
Okay.
the books and stuff. And I got some buddies in here. I'm sure there'll be a few questions.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. Let me overlay the chat on my face so people can see it out there in
This
the
is,
live stream land. So and some people are just saying hi because they came in right in the beginning. So Bob Sears,
Right.
good buddy and student of mine, who's up in New Hampshire, is here tonight hanging with us.
Okay.
Lucia Seminara, who's a young female student of mine is hanging with us, saying, "How's everybody doing tonight?" So she's here.
Cool.
I'm sure Lucia's going to have a question. And
Okay, bring it on.
yeah, it'll be John Gill is here, good friend of
Oh
mine.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I know him. Sure.
Yeah. John
Yeah.
Gill does a podcast with O for Drum's Sake with Janine Fox, Canino, and Bobby Angeletta is involved with that. So, and actually, John said, "Hey Jim and Jim," because it's the Jim show tonight.
Yeah.
I'm a little late here. Just finished teaching. Great to see you, Jim. Enjoyed your Berkeley Funk and R&B course several years ago. Holy moly!
Yeah, man. Yeah, he's going.
Yeah, man. My buddy Dave Clive is hanging with us tonight. Greetings from Brooklyn. Dave Clive is a real good buddy of Stanton Moore too, and has attended every single Stanton Moore event ever through the history of Stanton Moore. Lucia, follow-up question. Why does that drummer inspire you? So, Lou, when we were talking, because that's got to be a while ago, but I think she's referring to maybe the beginning of the James Brown conversation. But I think we sort of covered it. But what would you say about as far as pick one guy that's really been an inspiration as far as drummers go?
Well, I mean, there's so many, but I what came to my head was Zigaboo Modaliste. I mean,
Yeah, man.
Joseph Zigaboo Modaliste, he changed the game, as far as, slightly changing this and that. He changed the whole game.
Totally.
I saw him at the Apollo with the meters, and it was like, he's playing on the hi-hat with two hands and moving around like this, and I was like, what is he doing, man? I was like,
Yeah.
I'd never seen everybody's like, on the hi-hat doing this all the time, but then I got into him really big time and realized that he heard stuff in New Orleans and with these second line bands, and he was trying to put, one guy played a bass drum, somebody else played snare drum, somebody played cymbals, and he was trying to like put it all together. So it was kind of weird how he went all with his hands, but he was hearing. It's all about hearing, right? He heard those sounds, and if there were some spaces, too bad. If there's no hi-hat there, who cares? So he changed the game and really inspired me. I would, listen to his stuff over and over again. All of it. I would put him as one of the key people in funk.
Yeah. And it's almost like he took those second line patterns and just opened it up on the hi-hat snare kick, and it's like he's playing those stickings the same way, and it sort of became this linear landscape, right? It's really incredible. Right. Anybody that's listening that's not hip to the meters, you people all should be, but go back and really do your homework on the meter stuff. It's like incredible. And Lou had one other question. She said, how are funk beats different from any other rock, pop, or jazz beat? What makes the feel so different?
That's a good one. What comes to my head is like the tempo is a little bit slower usually than a rock thing where you're kind of up there with the energy, and the same with jazz. The tempo is a little bit slower. So what happens is you end up with a line of 16th notes, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and that becomes your kind of basis, and then you kind of so there's all kinds of things you can do as long as you keep that 16th note flow going.
Yeah.
And that kind of gives it the funk, I mean, it's just kind of like, whew, you're just rolling along like you're on the road, I think that's a key to the feel of funk. You got that 16th note. You got more stuff to mess around with,
Yeah.
And with the accents in a different player. So you can kind of, I don't know, you feel like you sort of like, we were talking earlier, like you surprise people a little bit, you give them a, wow, what happened there, man? It was like, oh, you played on the end of 4, and then, so it kind of gives you a little jolt, but you still got this thing happening.
Yeah, man. I think, and I want to just add one thing to that, like what you were saying about the 16th note thing happening. I always say to students, be the shaker. Like
Aha.
as you
Yeah, I
move
like
a
that.
shaker, as you move a shaker, the beads hit
Right.
the back and they hit the front, and they're moving around, but it keeps the momentum as long as you're moving. So it's sort of like you keep that momentum through your motions, right? In
Mm,
funk especially. And then if you think about it like this too, the lilt and sort of the little bit of the swing that's in funk is a little bit different. It's kind of in between the cracks. So if you're going to be the
right.
shaker and you got a little swing and you're in that right tempo you were just talking about, it's like that can be the funkiest stuff ever, right?
That's infectious. That's a great analogy with the shaker. I mean, you hear some funk tunes. They just have that something. What is something that's really making this thing happen? You know, it's some guy or woman in the back just doing the shaker thing. And, that's the key. That's kind of that's the idea of it.
Be that shaker.
Yeah.
Anthony Crisina says hello. He said, "Hey
Oh,
Jim Payne, great to
wow.
see you." Anthony
Wow. Yeah,
Crisina from New
Tony.
York, good buddy of mine.
Yeah.
I was helping him with his tech. He said,
All
"How's the
right. Great,
catfish
man.
compared to Brooklyn out there?"
Oh man, the fish out here is fantastic. I gotta tell you, man. You know, like I'm right on the water, and I moved off this mountain where I was, and I'm in a garage again. You know, I'm in the garage. You know, but I think well, I don't know. You know, you get basements, garages, wherever. Um, but it's fun. I like it. But the water is right out here, and I see fishing boats, and so. But I mean, you can go there and get fresh caught fish, and there's a couple of different fish places, and I love the calamari and the bass, all kinds of fish.
I
It's
think
great. I don't
pe-
know Brooklyn. I'm sure they got good fish too, you know, but
yeah, yeah. Well, I
I don't
will
want to.
say people don't realize this. Right outside that door, behind Jim,
Yeah, I don't know if you
or
can see this.
to the right of Jim,
Yeah, there it
you open
is, right
that door, the ocean is right there, man. It's like pretty unbelievable.
there.
So
Lucky to find this place for a while. Yeah.
yeah, man.
So
Holy moly. So yeah, Anthony Cusina hanging with us. Al
wow.
Henneborn hanging with us. What's up, Al? Good to see you. Sergio Bellotti, my lefty
Sergio.
brother from another mother.
All right. Sergio, how are you, man? Damn.
He says, "Hey fellas, greetings from Boston. Jim, I'm having a great time teaching a section of your great funk R&B course at Berkeley Online. Ciao to
Yeah,
both."
yeah.
Nice.
That's it. We had so many students that you know, some different cats are now teaching it, which is fun. Sergio's great.
Sergio's a great guy.
Yeah, and he was involved with the School of Funk, excuse me, in the beginning, because I've been to some extent, what do they call it, s- farming it out to other teachers, you know,
Right.
and was involved with that in the beginning. But anyway, it's great to have him with us, you know.
Hell yeah. Yeah, yeah, Sergio. And I got a student who's going to be studying at Berkeley in September. So hopefully he'll be
Uh,
hitting your course at some point and doing some stuff with Sergio at some point. So that'll be
yeah,
really cool. Um,
cool.
all right, my Southpaw brother. And Bob Sears said, "Can you play us something funky?" Which you did, but we want more. Play us
More.
another funky thing, man. What you got?
Ah, ah. Well,
Yeah, baby.
that's something.
Yeah, baby. That's something. And I will say that when I studied with Kim Plainfield, rest in peace, Kim Plainfield, at
Yes,
Drummers
yeah.
Collective, he always talked about playing wanna funk. So like
One of
playing on the of one, right? So that little
oh,
doom tka tick tick tickum stack tick doom tka tick tickum ga. That was
yeah,
always
yeah.
so funky right away, right? It's like just move that snare over to the of one and you get wanna funk, right?
That's great. I love it. Kim's a great player.
Yeah, he
Really
was
nice
great.
guy. Um, and of course, that puts you on the clave. You know, that puts you on the three side of the clave.
Yeah.
The bop, 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 chicka, bop, and everything. Pretty much. That's my. The bass drum is going to be on the of one, the first bar of the three side of the clave, and that's I always thought of thinking that way. There's an interesting thing, it got into this whole play on the one, the James Brown thing on the one, so
Right.
you're always. But it's also fun to leave out the one,
Yeah.
I mean, leave it out on the bass drum,
Right.
and then I mean, we've been playing the one so long, why not, give it a rest, a little bit, I mean, you got to be in the right band and everything, but I love to play, and I love to put a long hi-hat on one. Usually with the bass drum. Ah. Just to kind of change it up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing is like if you have the one on the first of a 2-bar pattern and then leave it out on the second bar,
Yeah.
and then it really elongates the whole thing, right? Or and then as you're coming back around, hit the and a 4 maybe. And so you get that little anticipation, right, where there's no one, but it came early.
Yeah, it came early, right. So you got to know where it comes out. That's a good idea. Let me see. So you're trying to leave out the one, on the second time around.
Yeah, that's sweet. See that? We're collaborating. What the hell?
I'm getting ideas. Jim Toscano is a great teacher. He's a multifaceted fellow. He's a technical genius as well as being a great drummer. So
thanks,
I
brother.
appreciate him
But see,
inviting me.
what's so cool is that, as drummers, we can do this. We hang together. It's like a tribe mentality with drummers.
That's right. I know. Well, how did that happen, man?
Like we all flock together. My students know I always make this joke, but I'm always like, there's no bassoon hangs. It's not like the bassoon players are getting together like sharing ideas. So and forget it. Even forget guitar players. They're not sharing anything. They're turning their backs on each other. And
their licks.
And with us, it's always like, oh man, what if you did this? Yeah, oh, that's so cool. It's not like a competition. It's more like a brotherhood, and sisterhood.
It's great. And you're right. It's for some reason it's like we just get together. We've kind of been like denigrated, a lot, or we've been like put to the back, and that whole thing of like we got, well, who's in the band? We got like 3 musicians and a drummer, that kind of jive, So I don't know. We sort of come together and like, share ideas, share spirit. It's great. Drummers have a great community, and people like you are helping it even better now. Now there's even more people in terms of the whole internet thing. So that's cool.
And it's kind of what's kind of nice is during sort of the whole pandemic thing, because so many people really got into the online thing, and I got to meet so many wonderful people that way, and helping people get this together. But one thing that spawned out of it is more of this sense of community where guys are getting together, interviewing each other, interviewing other educators. Drumming podcasts have really exploded. I know there was a bunch that have been around for years that I wasn't even aware of until I started. Like, I'm new to like checking out podcasting, which is kind of funny. But there's, like Drum History Podcast, and Big Fat Five is another really amazing one. So there's like these great podcasts out. And now you're doing some of this where you're interviewing some of our drum heroes as well as associates and comrades, right? So speak to that. So you're doing a little bit of this Instagram thing, right?
I got into it. I did, I did Mike Clark a couple of weeks ago. My first attempt. It was a little technically funky, but it was funky, all right. We got into it, and Mike is an amazing drummer, and he's another guy who put his stamp on it, and it's been different ever since. Really a pioneer in the whole linear thing. Playing with Herbie Hancock and everything, and some great ideas. And so we talked about some of that stuff and the history. He's got a long history, but started in New Orleans, went to ended up in the Bay Area, and got with Paul Jackson, and then got into the Headhunters, and then I also did John Riley. That was two weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. John, and I go back to New York a long. We got a lot of history, and he's we were kind of coming up at the same time, and he's been the drummer for the Vanguard band for many, many years, taking over from Mel Lewis.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we talked about that and how he got into there. Amazing, really strong, oriented guy. I was mentioning to JT. I called Jim Toscano JT, and earlier, I talked to John Riley, and I said, "What'd you do during the pandemic?" And because the club was closed, and they do
Yeah.
tours and stuff, but the club was closed. So he said, "Oh, I've been practicing 2 or 3 hours a day." And I was like, "I wish I was doing that." It's like he's such a strong guy, and
Yeah, man.
he's inspiring. He's actually. One time I went to the Vanguard, I was talking to him in the break, and I said, "Man, how do you all these charts? Like there's so many. How are you doing with this stuff?" And he said, "Well, after I memorized the charts, it came on a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah.
And what? When I talked to him on my podcast, whatever you want to call it, live stream 2 weeks ago, he broke it down a little bit and said, well, I had already been playing 10 of these tunes quite a bit over the years when I was in college, blah blah blah. So it made it a little bit less incredible, but it's still incredible that anybody
Yeah.
can memorize those big band charts. It's like you turn the pages. It's like
Yeah. I guess if
and
you're playing those charts often enough, eventually you get that stuff memorized, but it's like that's a hard book to memorize.
ah,
And I've taken students out to see that band, to go see them play, and I'm friendly with Jim, with John, and we go up and talk to him afterwards and introduce students to him, and
yeah.
such a great experience, man. But I got hip to John Riley's playing because I was neighbors with Bob Mincer, and so he played on Bob Mincer's Art of the Big Band record. And the way I met John was, and I met Peter Erskine this way. Bob was doing the Art of the Big Band record in the city and said, "Hey man, come down to the studio. I'll let you come in and watch the sessions."
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
sat there like a fly on the wall watching John
Yeah.
Riley play some tracks and Peter Erskine come in and play afterwards. And I was like, oh my
man.
God. And
That's an
I just fell in love with John's playing from that record, so really
was
incredible.
Bob Minster living in Soho at that time? Or
No,
down
he was living in
below?
Brooklyn, man. He was living in
Oh, he was
Brooklyn.
in-
And
Okay.
a crazy thing about that is that he was living across the street from me, and I hadn't met him yet. I just moved in on the block, and I was playing music on my stereo, and I had this Bob Mincer record playing, and it was
Right.
like it was a small band record, and I'm looking at this record, and on the back there's a picture of Bob in his like leather coat, with his fro and his mustache, and he's on the back cover, and I'm looking out my window, and he's out there in the same coat walking his dog. And I'm looking at the back of the CD, and then I'm looking out the window, and I'm like, holy crap, that's Bob Mincer right there, the guy on my CD. So I went out and I met him, and I became friendly with him, and got to watch him record that record. And then after that, he invited us when he started playing with the Yellow Jackets to go out and go backstage and meet the band with that. That was a really incredible time for us because I was playing in a fusion band in New York City, and we were really influenced by the Yellow Jackets. So anyway,
Right. That's cool.
yeah.
I remember, just talking about moments that happened that convinced you to be a drummer. When I was in college, and we had this band, and it was called the 5-Card Stud, and we recorded we got a recording deal, and we went into New York and recorded we recorded a song. So two things about it. One was the producer said, "Well, let's record the music first, and then we'll do the vocals." And I had never ever done that, So without the vocals, I didn't know where the hell I was, And then I realized I didn't really know the song, I took all my cues from the vocalist, and that was a real wake up. I better get this together, And then fortunately, that producer, what's his name? He was a pretty famous producer. Anyway, he let me go to sessions. After that, I would go to the session, like you were saying. I would sit on the floor or in the back of the control room somewhere and watch them do sessions. And I'm trying to think of the drummer, Gary Chester.
Oh, yeah, man.
He came in, and I saw several sessions, and they'd come in, and they'd have their sessions 40 minutes, and then they'd go out and call on the phone, and then they'd go to the next session, and then they'd do the tune in like 15 minutes. They'd have it all figured out, and all the hits would be perfect. And I said, wow, this is where it's at, man. These guys really know what's happening. And I was inspired, and by that, thinking there is a future in this. Like there's something happening here. People are doing sessions every day, and it's a profession.
Yeah,
so
man.
That was another. And I saw a lot of great session people playing, Artie Butler. But anyway, then I got his books and stuff, and I know Weckl was really influenced by him.
Yeah, yeah.
But another moment, when you see the real deal, and sometimes you gotta just kind of fight your way into it, like go to the back of the club and look in the back or something, Jabbo Starks is looking in the back of this club where he heard a lot of people in Mobile, Alabama, and then it was like I gotta do this, So, but you gotta go out there, right? You gotta go out and find stuff.
Oh yeah, man. Nobody's man. I worked with a great piano player a really long time ago. We were recording stuff, and I kept saying to him, man, I'm like, no one's gonna knock on your door. It's not like the talent police are coming around going like, hey man, you're really amazing. Let's give you a record deal. It's like, dude, you have to get out there and you have to make it happen. You have to make your own luck, right?
That's right. That's exactly it. It's kind of a tough love or tough one to think about, but I think everybody who's out there that's the way it works, So even if it's a little, you got to be a little aggressive, You got to be, and we're drummers, so we kind of sit in the back and kind of hide out, to some extent, and do our thing, and then it's. And then the guitar players get the girls, and then you're packing up your drums, like.
That's right. We're the first ones there, the last ones to leave,
But anyway, that you gotta, get off of that, I'm in the background thing, and knock on some doors, and say some stuff, and get your way in there, And you gotta be in the right place, be where the action is, hang out,
That's
now that the pandemic's over, God help us. God, I hope it's really over. And go and hang out, meet people, go to schools, meet people on the jam sessions or the bands in colleges, whatever they are. Be there, meet people. That's how it works.
That's it, man.
They don't call you up. I don't think I've ever gotten a gig by passing out my business card.
No, man. It's always word of mouth, and
Yeah.
That's it, man. Eddie Everett's hanging out with us, by the way.
Hey, Eddie, how are you, man? He's my man out here in California.
Yeah, man. Eddie said, hey, Jim, I love your online course and your books. He said your book, wait, he put a link in here. I'm not going to click on it because I can't really mess with that at the moment. But he said, think the funk melody is more the drums than rock. Oh, so is the drums part of the melody more so than in rock?
In funk, you mean?
In funk, yeah. Like more melodic, I think he means.
Certainly like to say yes. I think it is.
Hell yeah.
I mean, if you get a certain line, happening, like the chameleon or whatever, that's part of the thing,
That's it.
Let's see.
Wanna funk.
You know what happened? You bring your foot back on the pedal and then you try to play it and it doesn't work because you've. Anyway. How about getting your pant leg caught in your beater?
Oh my God! I can't tell you how many times that used to happen.
Then you roll up your pants and then you're walking around in the break, and people say, "What this guy?" And he's got
Yeah,
his
what
pants
is
off.
that? You're in a gang? I would
Yeah.
I would take my pant leg and tuck it into my sock.
Yeah, there's another way of doing it, absolutely. But anyway, the usual, like if you like the chameleon. Ah, what about not getting a rim shot? Let's see how did that go?
Yeah.
Something like that. I mean, that's part of the song, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
you
totally.
don't mess with that one, like, and well, the same with Garibaldi. He said, he wrote his stuff and he perfected it, went home, perfected it, came back to rehearsal, played it again, figured out which one worked best, and he conceives of it as a composition. And so when he plays that song, he that's part of the composition. I mean, the trumpet player plays the notes, right?
Right.
Unless he's soloing. So that that speaks to that question. And I do think that's true. That you get a nice. I mean, I've been making up beats my whole life, and I like to think that they're compositions that are part of the song. So they are. I think they are melodic.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. And actually, I think it's kind of interesting you were mentioning Garibaldi because I think Rocco, his bass lines were very drummer-ish, right? But melodic at the same time. And Garibaldi's playing was very like bass lines in a way and very melodic. And
Hmm.
I think David said in an interview that uh, that he kind of played drums like a bass player, and that Rocco played bass like a drummer. So I
Yeah,
thought that was
yeah.
kind of interesting. Uh,
And Rocco would leave space. That's another thing. Uh, you don't boom 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 don't
yeah, yeah,
space
that's right.
boom boom space. So that's a drummer's dream. Then you can have a conversation.
Oh, check this out. So TB player, are you a trombone player? Said, would you consider J.R. Robinson's drum part on Steve Winwood's "Back in the High Life" a funk groove?
Wow, I'd have to hear it. I'd have to hear it again. I'm sure it was amazing, but it was kind of the high life and all that stuff is like kind of from the islands and different types of stuff. But
Right.
so what? So we're talking about semantics or wordplay here. I mean, I don't want to label everything. It's like because everything shouldn't have a label. Everything should be its own thing.
Yeah.
Uh, I can't tell you because I haven't listened to it in a while, but I remember basically. I remember that I really liked it. That's all I can say. And it had a slightly different island type of a groove.
Yeah, I would say, is that just because something's funky doesn't make it funk. So there's a difference between the genre and then just
Mhm.
being funky, right? Like something could be super funky, but it may not be a funk tune. Um, I always, the those early Beck albums, Wired, Jeff Beck's album Wired, and Blow by Blow,
Yeah.
and Richard Bailey played drums on that stuff, and it's to me, it was right in there with listening to Tower of Power and listening to like early Stanley Clarke and Lenny White stuff, and sort of
Uh-huh.
things that were all funky. And to me, that was like I thought it was a funk record. As far as the
Hmm.
genre, though, it's I mean it's instrumental sort of fusion record in a way, right? So, but it was
Okay.
so funky. Those Richard Bailey parts, the drum parts are just so incredibly funky,
I
and
gotta I
so
gotta listen to that again.
there's sort of right. So I would say there's the genre, and then
Hmm.
there's the feeling. How funky something is a feeling too.
Hmm. Hmm. You could say that. Sure. Sure. I mean, the genre is one thing, and then I mean, now you're saying like Elvin Jones is funky, right?
That's
I
right.
mean,
Yeah, yeah.
so like now I'm getting what you're saying. Give me 1 second. I want to close the door. It's getting chilly in here.
Yeah,
The
man.
wind in the.
Very cool. But TB player, by the way, TB player, Type in your name in one of these so I know what your name is. But yeah, that was a good point. I think that was a really good point. And yeah, oh, there you go. You're saying it later on. It's a pop tune with a funky drum part. Indeed. That's what I agree with that. Here, I'm going to play the drum groove at the top. I'll let Jim get his headphones back on. Hey, Jim, I'm going to play the groove from the top of the tune back in the High Life because it's
cool.
solo drums, so I probably won't get flagged. And it's an educational platform. Let's check it out.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can hear. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not what you were talking about.
You can
Did
just
you-
jump this on.
Did you really mean back in the High Life, or did you mean? I think he meant Higher Love.
Yeah, right. That's the one. It must
Yeah,
be
yeah.
higher.
For me, it's Higher Love. Here's the drums
I
at the
heard
beginning
that
of
a while
Higher
back.
Love.
This is Manu Katché.
No, this is J.R. Robinson.
Oh, it is. Oh shit.
And in fact, what's so cool with that drum part is it really does sound like a timbali part, right? He's playing it on the rim of the snare and the center of the snare. So I think TB Player was referring to that because High Life is really a straight pop tune, but I would
Give
say
me a higher love.
yeah, Higher Love, man, that's got some funky beat. And I should have, if I thought of it, I could have set this up in Moises and soloed the drums in Higher Love in the verses, because in the verse it's really sparse, the groove. It's very, very cool. TB Player is Jesse.
Jesse.
His name is Jesse. So cool, man. Thank you, Jesse, for the questions.
Heck. Yeah, cool. Thanks very much.
And he said yes. I think he was talking about that tune. Yeah, man. Who played drums on Gary Willis's No Sweat?
Damn.
Do you know that tune?
I do not know that tune.
I'm stumped too, man. I mean, I'm sure I've heard it, but I'll have to look that one up. He said funky beat and an odd meter. Cool, man. Nice. I think there's one more question from Lou, and then I want to talk about your books.
Okay.
Lucia said, does every instrument in a band have to play a funky part in order for a song to be considered funk? If only one instrument played a funky beat, would the song be considered funk? That's a good question, Lou, because now you're talking about groove construction,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's where, I think it's like a puzzle that you put together, and you and the bass player and the guitar player or maybe a keyboard player. It's like you got to have that space. You got to have different types of lines that go over each other but don't step on each other. You got to have space for the other guy to come out. If it's put together properly, with everybody listening, then you've got a serious groove. I mean, if it's a funk thing, it's a funk thing. I mean, it could be a jazz thing too, or it could be a rock thing. But I don't. The idea of sort of labeling is it funky, or is it not funky? I mean, is it jazz or is it not jazz, or is it rock, or that there's lines that are crossed here.
Right.
The drums could be funky, and other people playing kind of straight eighth note rock thing. So it's like a combo. It's like a fish stew thing.
I always like to describe it as gears. So it's kind of like gears, right? Like a gearbox. You got these gears that sort of interlocking, where everything doesn't have to overlap. They can kind of interlace, like gears. And it's like,
Right.
like if you're playing, if somebody's playing something really complex on the bass, and then you just give it 1 and 3, 2 and 4, that could be the funkiest stuff ever, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
Because you're just framing it out. You're just supporting what that thing was. The worst thing is when everybody's playing the same thing, right?
Right. Or just playing over each other.
Or over each other. Yeah, exactly.
But the same thing can be good on a little part, and then everybody go off into their other thing, and then come back and play something similar, and then move out and repeat. That's the thing that the funk thing. You have that 2-bar phrase that repeats, and it just kind of you get your attention. To me, it's like just 2 and 4 is, one measure phrase, it's kind of you don't get that expansion. When you get a
Right.
two measure phrase and you say, "Well, oh man, something happened there." You open the hi hat on the end of four. You don't really, you might not even know it, but subconsciously you can feel that it's got that two bar feeling. It's got a little more depth to it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. By the way, that's kind of funny. Now I had to like look up that tune. Vincent LaRussa, my good friend and also a student, and I think you met Vincent LaRussa at PASIC. He was with me when I met
Ah,
you. So Vincent
okay.
LaRussa's hanging with us, and he said that that the tune um, "No Sweat" by Gary Willis was Dennis
Hmm.
Chambers on drums.
Oh man, wow.
Yeah, man. So
Serious, serious.
so he's fierce, man. Um,
Fierce. That's a good one.
yeah. um, let me see. Let me see if I can hit just a little piece of this. I won't get flagged.
You know this tune, man.
Let's see.
No.
1997.
Okay.
See if it'll. Oh, it's got a big intro, but let's put it into the groove somewhere.
That's the
Wait, hold
intro.
on.
Let's hear Dennis Chambers.
Here we go.
I get that tune immediately, man.
Yeah,
It's-
Jesse. Thanks for bringing that up.
I mean, when you have a good bass drum and snare, I mean, I'm just totally into bass drum and snare drum, really. I mean, that's all I really, and one cymbal, maybe in a hi-hat, but the way that was mixed, it was so clear, and the snare drum was just a whap, it was like, anyway, it had space in it, I got to check that out.
Yeah, that's
I'll get that on Spotify or something.
yeah. That was like Eddie
All
Everett
these
said.
hits, so I can learn some stuff, man.
Hell yeah, hell yeah.
I mean, you got to be open all the time, man. That's fantastic,
So I want to mention a few things in here. I hear my voice circling back. Why is that happening?
There was a little bit of an echo. I don't know. On mine, I heard a little, but not much now.
Huh. Yeah, I get an echo. That's weird.
Can you hear the motorcycles going by outside?
I can.
There's a lot of people that go along the shore here, and they demonstrate their motorcycles or their cars, whatever,
Why
And
am
a
I
lot of
getting
people running by. A lot of in shape people down here. Inspiring. I see them running in the morning, running in the evening.
Check. Hello? Yeah, I'm still
Hello.
hearing a little echo. So I want to bring up a couple things here. Check this out. So, and I'm just going to put him in kind of. Here's some of Jim's books.
Right.
So, holy moly, we got books.
Yeah.
First of all, this one. What are you, like 15 years old here?
Yeah, not quite, but yeah, that's the first one, funk drumming.
This is the first one, and it says online audio. Yeah. So
Yeah,
this is like a pretty dense book. This is almost as thick as my book, if not thicker. There's a lot of grooves in here, man. So this is like a serious workbook, I would say. And this is a Mel Bay production.
That's right. Mel Bay has been great publisher, and I was living on 46th Street at the time. I was living in Henry Adler, the great drum teacher.
Yeah, I know Henry.
He has published a lot of books and taught a lot of people, and he had a store there. He had a building there. He had a store on the bottom, and he taught and then the second floor. And on the third floor, or on the second floor, he had a bunch of studios, and as well as his studio, which was in the front. He had a window. And I had a studio there. Andrew Cyril, and then Sonny Igo was at the end. And then some of it changed over. Ed Shaughnessy used to be there. At any rate, I was looking for a place to live, and the third floor had an apartment, which was over Henry Adler's studio. So I lived there for several years, and that's where I wrote funk drumming.
Wait, did you study with Henry? Because Dom studied with Henry.
I did study with Henry, absolutely, man.
Oh,
I
man.
studied with Sonny Igo, and then I studied with Henry Adler as well, and some other guys, teachers too.
Oh, that's awesome.
he was a great teacher. You know, he had snare drum, right? And he had a pad, which I still have this pad, which he gave me, which is it's called a quiet tone mute. And now I think
Sabian makes
Pearl
them.
has it, or somebody has it.
Sabian.
Maybe Sabian.
Yeah, I got
And
it.
it was
Look, mine's
have one
really
there?
dirty. Yeah, but here's mine.
Oh my God, far out. That's great. I found this rubber piece of somewhere. I got it from packaging. I put it on there. It makes it a little bit harder to, not quite as easy to play.
Right, right.
But anyway, Henry invented this thing, and so he actually gave me this. So I was very happy that he did. It had a slight imperfection, so he gave it me. But I used to hear him every morning, 9 o'clock. He'd start playing. He'd start having students, and he, as I said, he had the snare drum. And he had nothing else. That was it, He said, well, a bass drum, you could just tap your foot on the floor, Don't worry about that,
Yeah.
But, funk was like, bass drum, you got to have your bass drum. So anyway, I came up through all that, and I wrote the book, and he helped me with the book. He actually, I'd bring in a copy, bring in some ideas, and he said, well, you got to do this faster. The student's not going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And he had published a ton of books, so he was really knew what he was talking about. So he was really, helped me in that respect. And then I got to deal with Mel Bay, and the book was, it came out. It was one of the first funk books, and I tried to put, the best stuff in there, and just exercises and stuff that I was listening to all the time. It's a lot in there, and I still use it. I use it in a Berkeley class. I use it in my School of Funk.
And it's really all of this stuff is really challenging, and it reminds me, it's really funny. Like, before I became hip to your book, I was using Chet DeBoe's funk drumming book. Do you know about Chet?
That's a good book too. Yes, absolutely. The Gray book.
And that book like tripped me up when I was a kid. I was like, oh my God, like, and then I came to know your book and Rick Latham's linear drumming book, and all these. I think they're really, really important books, and this is right up there with everything. And
Thank you. I try to expand it, more, not just have the grooves, but to have the exercises to get to the grooves.
Yeah. So we have that, and then one of the things that I just want to bring up, because we'll get back to the funk in a minute, but holy moly.
Yeah, Tito Puente, man, he was something else.
Drumming with the Mambo King. Tell me about how did this happen?
Well, I knew a woman, Ina Ditka, her name is, and she's out there now. She lives in England now. And she used to book us over in Europe and various situations that she helped out. And she was booking Tito Puente. So I said, man, I gotta check this out. So I went to a couple of gigs. I think it was a New Year's gig or something. I went there and I sat down and talked with him. He was with her, whatever. We talked. And what do you do? I do this. He said, well, I've always wanted to do a book. I haven't done anything. And so I said, well, let's see what we can do. So he was living across George G.W. Bridge. I forget the place over there. Anyway, I went over there and I had my little cassette machine or a tape recorder, and I went down to his basement, and he had all these charts lying around and timbales, all sorts of stuff, and then his wife comes in and says, well, this guy's got a recorder. He's recording you, And so it was a little more serious than he thought, And then after that, we kind of got on well, as drummers, as we were talking before,
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, well, let's see what we can do, So we got into it. I worked really hard on that book, trying to translate it, because I'm not coming out of Latin music. I went to Cuba and studied with some guys there and really got into it heavy duty. And then I came back and I tried to, as a drummer, you want to play Latin-oriented stuff on the drum set. So the book is two things: one, how to play the timbales, and two, how to play the drums, and various grooves, various Cascara grooves that are really great for funk, by the way. If you want to,
Right.
Talk about, cross-pollination or whatever you call it, different styles. I mean, you have the Latin Cascara, for instance. So if you fill that in, with your left hand on the snare drum. Now that already you should start thinking, wow, what can I do with that? I mean, just part of it. There is like a whole world of stuff, in Latin music. And so we were very lucky with that book. Tito had a bunch of, he's a timbali master, so I transcribed, note by note, a lot of, like about 5 of his most famous timbali solos. And then there were tunes to play along to, and I thought, well, what are we going to, so he had these hit tunes, and somehow we went to the publisher, and they said, yeah, okay, go ahead, so we in the audio part of it, we have like 6 or 7 of his hit tunes, and we didn't pay a thing for them, and I got the charts. Jose Madero was his band leader at that time, and for a lot of the time, who was also a percussionist and a piano player. He wrote out the charts for the drums, or whatever, the timbales, the skeleton stuff of how to do it and where the hits are and all that by hand, basically, and they're all in there too. So it's a pretty special book, I mean, Tito was unbelievable to get to know him, and he's an amazing band leader and a personality. He knew exactly what was happening, knew how to make the audience have a good time, and he just started off, hey, everybody's here, everybody's all right, how are you, and it was like right away you love the guy, and so he was a great influence on me, how to be a person. Like that's the same I'm talking about Jabbo and Clyde Stubblefield. You just learn you learn more about life, or something.
Right,
I don't know.
right.
You like you sort of carry yourself differently after you meet some really inspiring people like that. And Tito was great. And then he had this club in City Island. Tito's, it was a club. It was like a bar and food and the whole thing, And I went up there and I got a gig up there playing with some Latin cats, and it really turned me on to Latin music. I was so inspired that they asked me to play. So anyway, that was part of my Latin thing, and I was just, as I say, in terms of funk, you got to get into Latin music, man. You've got to get into it, And man, there are bands out of Cuba that'll really blow your mind. I'm telling you. I'm going to give you some links, some stuff about that.
Oh yeah,
This band
man.
Climax is unbelievable. Klimax, Climax.
Oh
They
man.
do some stuff that will, I just keep playing it over and over again. It's good for driving. Late at night when you're coming home from the gig and you're dying, it's like keeps you going.
I want to bring up a couple more right here. What about this one?
Yeah, that was a that was a long one. Yeah, that was Give the Drummer Some. Well, I got so much into drums and so much, and I wrote the first book, and then I just I wanted to learn these. I wanted to know these people. I wanted to know these people a little more. So I got the idea of doing this book. Give the drummers some, like that's the James Brown thing when he calls out, give the drummer. Can I give the drummer some? And then Clyde Stubblefield plays. Yeah, there's Mel, right?
Melvin.
A drum break that is really killer. So. That was the title, Give the Drummers Some, and I put the S on there, Give the Drummers Some.
Right. Yeah, man. This is
And
so
then I got
great
into
because
it.
you really have like, the background, the history. Oh, you got Alan Schwartzberg in here. I know Alan.
Yeah, he played on a ton of stuff, man. Just
Yeah, he did.
amazing.
He played on
Great
a
studio
lot of
drummer
stuff.
from New York. But I put in basically the what do you call it? The trend, the discography of each of the guys.
Right.
And I got a lot of help from a guy who was James Brown's sort of I don't know what to say. He was his road manager, and he knew all the stuff about who did what, when, where, and it's all in the book there. Like what track did Jabbo play on, and what track did Clyde play on, and Melvin, and even some other guys, Tiger. Martin, who played on a couple of tracks, and different people. So there's all that in there. And then in the back, I played 99 beats, basically.
Right.
A lot of the famous stuff, from all, there's 26 drummers in there. I got carried away, by the time I got into it, it was like, so.
It's a massive book.
That was when I showed it to Paul Siegel up at Drummers Collective. He says, "Well, it's very thick, and well, it's different than sort of a book where you're trying to teach them some stuff on with exercises and stuff like that. This is a historical type of a biography book, but it has the notes in there too. If you're interested, in the back you can check out the notes of a lot of the famous grooves. But it was so much fun talking to those guys, and getting to know them. Roger Hawkins, who I went down there and hung out with him down in Selma. No, it wasn't Selma. It was in Alabama. It was at the Fame Studios, and I'm really sad that he passed away recently.
I know, man. It's crazy.
He was a really incredible drummer. I went with him and hung out, and we went to the auto show, the auto dealership. He'd bought a Buick Riviera,
Really?
which at that time was really a hip car, and he wanted to get wide white walls put on it. So we hung out for a day, basically, and he a really sweet guy. I mean, and talk about leaving space,
Oh, man.
and yet putting your stamp on it. It's like you were saying. It's sort of the feel. If you can get that happening. I mean, there's so many records that he played on. There's a whole thing about Aretha Franklin, that he played with a lot of her great hits, and there's a movie about it. I don't know. If
Muscle Shoals, man. That Muscle Shoals documentary is really, really important. I think everybody should see it.
And is that the one with Aretha, or it's just all about Muscle Shoals?
No, Aretha's in there.
Aretha's in there, but she's not the one I saw recently is a series on TV where there's like it's all about Aretha.
Oh, no,
But
no.
I'd like to see the other one too. I mean, I haven't seen that one, but
Yeah.
anyways, a lot going on there with Jerry Wexler and all the stuff. And then anyway, there's a big story there, but Roger Hawkins was a big part of it, and
Yeah, this is a major thing, man. You worked really hard on this.
2 years on that one. Basically, when I was living up in Woods Ridge, up in Katona, New York, about an hour north of New York City.
You got our buddy Bernard in there, baby, of course.
Bernard is in there, man. Yeah, and I studied with Bernard. I might as well, I'll tell you, and that was an inspiration. I went and studied with him, and it wasn't about the studying so much. It was, we had this book, Haskell Har, which is a red book. It's all about just dip, dip, dip. It's like a kind of a snare drum thing, and I'd go upstairs in the studio there, and he'd say, "Now play this, but don't play a groove to it." So you got all this, the notes are just dip. You forget that. You just play a groove, but you follow the music. You follow the first and second endings. You play the stops and all that. So it's really a good thing to do, actually. And then after a while, after several lessons, he said, "Well, I'm going to a session now. You want to come along?" So I did, and then I got into another. Again, I'm probably like a dozen sessions he took me to, and these ones I would sit on the floor in the drum booth, because there was no other chair, and then, the guys would come in, B.B. King, whoever it was, and I'd watch him do his thing, and Bernard is like unbelievable. He's got a great "Let the Drum Speak." It's called, I think. It's a biography, autobiography.
Autobiography, yeah.
And he's a character, He's a real character, but he produces, And he did. One time he came in, and they passed out the music, They put it on the music stand, looked at it. Meanwhile, "Hey man, what's happening? How you been? What's blah, blah?" He's jiving with everybody. He takes the music, and he turns it over like this. Or no, he turned it upside down like that. And I looking back on it, I'm sure it was to kind of blow my mind, But it did blow my mind completely, And then he played. It was a session jingle. It wasn't that long, but he played the whole thing perfectly. After a couple of takes, they had it, and I was just blown away. And then I read his autobiography, and I realized he has a photographic memory. So now I know what's not to take anything away from him, but I guess people that can do that, like what a great advantage. It's like being ambidextrous or something. So, I mean, he, of course, was a big part of soul music and R&B for many years in New York. He was the cat.
Yeah, man.
But it was all about his, his feel. It was like he just had it. He had it right in the pocket.
Indeed. I mean, one of the greats, right, of all time. And a New York guy and like super accessible. Like I would run into him at the Union Building, or I would run into him on a gig. So
Yeah.
crazy, man. Yeah, and a
Yeah.
sweetheart. Really a sweetheart of a guy.
He is. Finally, it was I forget, it was a session I went to. It was a man and a woman team, I forget, and after a few takes, said, "Who is this guy you bringing here? What is he doing there? What's he doing in the back?" And it was like, "Oh, he's." I said, "I don't want him here." So anyway, they got pissed off. They thought, I didn't say anything or anything, but it was like the end of my great run there. So
You got thrown out.
I got thrown out. Yeah. It was Ashford and Simpson. That's what it was.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy.
I don't blame him. What the hell? Who's this extra guy in there? But Purdy, and that, like they say, MasterCard is worth $1 million or something, man.
That's right.
God bless Bernard Purdy.
And I'm looking at 100 Famous Funk Beats. This is really cool. This is another Mel Bay one, right?
Yep, that's another Mel Bay. I got into that, and I played all of those too.
Right.
Yeah, they kind of, I just had the idea, 100 Famous Funk Beats. I thought it was,
Great.
I was doing it. I was into it. Why not? Bill Bay
Section
is great,
5.
great publisher.
Section 5, man. There's our buddy
Oh,
David.
okay.
Looking very
Right.
young there, David. And
Right.
and I would say that this is heavily used in your curriculum for Berkeley.
Yes. Right. Advanced funk drumming. So that was kind of my take after doing several things and a lot of playing in my career and everything. I thought, well, let me just do my thing. Play the grooves that I just come up with. And they're all stuff that I came up with, and I kind of organized it, tried to make it sort of,
And
getting.
you got my buddy Adam Klippel on keyboards in there.
Oh yeah, right. That was my band at that time, right? I had the Jim Payne trio was.
I did a lot of club dates with Adam. Holy moly.
No kidding. He was
Yeah.
amazing. He was amazing because,
Yeah.
I'd always had organ trios, and I was auditioning some cats, and and he came up with that red organ, whatever it's called, a Korg or something.
Nord.
Nord, yeah.
Yeah.
And played the hell out of it. And of course, with the organ, you got to have the bass happening, and I was skeptical of piano players, but man, he just did it.
Yeah, that cat can play. He's really, really good.
He had a nice run. So yeah, where were we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have 8 books.
God, really? Jeez.
There's 8, right?
I guess so. I haven't counted them lately, but
Well, I'll tell you what they all are, everybody. So because we went through most of them. We got Give the Drummer Some. We got Funk Drumming. That was that first one I showed. Advanced Funk Drumming, the last one I just showed. Drumming with the Mambo King. But then there's a second Tito Puente, which is King of Latin Music, right?
that's
And
a
then
different-
there's one called Drums from Day One.
That's another one, yeah.
Then the complete book of funk drumming, and then the
Right.
100 famous funk beats. So that's that's a pretty massive amount of stuff, my brother. You
Well,
got
I
a
don't
lot
know.
of stuff out there.
Got into it, and just kept going, with the advanced funk drumming was, like I said, it was me just kind of doing my thing, and I kind of organized it, tried to organize it to some extent, sort of ghost note type things, hi-hat pattern, and some Latin influence stuff that I just sort of played, linear stuff like that, and then just kind of different, triplet bass stuff, and then just kind of go for it and I'd go. I was doing it in France, and I'd just come in at my bergerie there and sit down and come up with something, and then and record it and write it down. I think it came out really well. I was just I want to go back through it myself and check out what I was doing back then, but
Yeah, man.
that one came out really nicely, and I use it in the School of Funk a lot, and also in my Berkeley courses. So
Yeah, man.
yeah, I'm real proud of that one.
And I'll tell you, I put your link. 1 second. I put your link in the description of this live stream. So there's a
Uh-huh.
link to your website there where people can find out, more
Great.
about you and where all your materials are.
Thank,
And I
thank you.
would say, I mean, give the drummers some. It reminds me of sort of the Roots of Rock Drumming thing that Daniel Glass and Steve Smith put out, but it's more about the roots of rock and going back to Little Richard. And yours
Right.
is going through all the funk and soul drummers and R&B guys. And I think it's a really incredibly important book. Like these books that go through the history, and you actually spoke to them and you interviewed these guys. It's so important that we capture all these guys. That's why I'm inspired to do these interviews, because for me, getting, fellow educators and drummers like yourself and capturing these moments where we're talking and kind of just going through it and hanging together, I think it's super important for people to see it. So,
Yeah, yeah. I'm some of the cats. Well, like Roger Hawkins just passed away, and
I know.
uh, Clayton Filio is gone, and so is Clyde, and so is Jabbo. When I think about it,
Yeah, those two guys
so,
passed really close to one another.
I was going to do. I had a session. I'm not a session. A clinic at the Chicago Drum Show, and it was supposed to have both of them, and it didn't happen. And then, well, at that point, Jabbo was still around, but he didn't want to go himself because he was not feeling well. So I was very privileged to get to know them. But yeah, so I mean, the history I think is very important, and I'm glad that people like you are keeping it alive so that other people can figure it out, and it's available today. That's so cool that people can. I mean, there's so many great drummers coming up that you can get the information if you look for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that,
Dom with the Sessions panel, he's caught a lot of amazing interviews. That's really, part of what inspired me to keep doing this and interviewing, my heroes and friends. And, it's like now I have guys that were my heroes that are my friends. It's like it's really
yeah,
amazing,
yeah.
and watching Dom capture, guys like, he caught Chick. He got a great interview with Chick before he passed. And
Uh-huh. Yeah,
rest
that
in
was
peace, Chick Corea, which was
right. Amen. No, that's super important. That really is important when you read, what they say and how they live. You sort of, to some extent, like I don't know. It's I like it. It's a matter. When you think of like, well, Charlie Parker. Well, he was just inspiration to everybody, but you don't want to get too deep into his personal life. And the same thing with James Brown. Like I mean, maybe you should just kind of dig the music, and watch the videos of his shows. But on the other hand, I'm very glad to have known Clyde and Jabbo and Roger Hawkins, and they inspire me. So I'm glad to know the history. I think you have to decide. What are you reading? Is this inspiring or is it not so inspiring? I think private lives could be, could in many cases should be private.
yeah.
But I think that historically, the more you find out. I mean, I'm reading this book about Van Gogh, who, I'm totally into Van Gogh, and there's a new book that's 1,000 pages long. So,
Wow.
but I'm going through it. I took a course up at Stanford, an online course about this book, and it's fascinating. It really you kind of get into how did they do this? How did they get so inspired? What was their personality like? And in that case, it's inspiring. He goes through ups and downs, ups and downs, and then the ups he makes these incredible paintings, and he might, he ended up not. They say that he, killed himself, but the book says that he didn't really. So there's a whole thing about that. But as an artist, it's so inspiring what he did. Just changed the whole course of modern art. So
Yeah,
I want to know about this guy. So I
right.
want to know about Clyde Stubblefield. I want to know about Zigaboo.
It's
And I
amazing,
think
man.
that's important.
To that we have so much available to us, and that you can study whatever you want to study, right? And I feel myself, and it sounds like you too, like we're students of life, and and also just permanent students. Like we just want to learn and learn
Right.
and learn.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you sit down and you come up with something that's cool. Or like I just heard that Dennis Chambers. I want to hear that. And I want to. All of that is fun.
Yeah, man, and it's inspiring, right? So, and that the other thing, speaking to that is, us as drum educators, like we get inspired by the students, right? Like you'll have a student play something and you go like, that was really cool. My young student Lucia that's in here who's 12 years old, she writes rudimental routines that she comes up with for my hand technique workshop. She comes up with stuff and I'm always
Damn.
like amazed, man. I'm like, you're
Never
12
thought of
and
that, right?
yeah, it's like
Wow.
very cool, man. Um,
That's great. That's great.
by the way, we're probably coming down to the end here, and I got Gary Weiss, buddy of mine from New York, is
Mm.
hanging. He played with Gloria Gaynor, among others. Really great drummer, and he said his former teacher, John Trentacosta, used to have one of those back in 1974. I don't know what you were referring to because that was too long ago, but he saw Tito at Club Benet. So he was talking about
Ah.
Tito.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah, yeah. And back to TB player Jesse said Dave Hood was the Muscle Shoals studio bass player.
Right.
He was the Joe Osborne of that studio. Great bass lines. That is true, man. Um, oh, Gary Weiss was talking about the practice pad that you and I were showing our
Oh
our
yeah,
um,
the
quiet
quiet
tone
tone too.
pads. Yeah, Gary. Sorry, man. I we were chatting for a while. I didn't catch your comment when you said it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give you a couple quick questions. So,
Okay.
just kind of rapid fire little ideas. So,
Right.
if you weren't playing drums, and if you couldn't play drums, what do you think you would have done?
Wow. Damn. If I couldn't play drums, I mean, if I couldn't play drums now, I would still teach.
Yeah.
If I couldn't play drums from the beginning, if I had
Yeah. What would that have been?
another career, right? Oh, I think it might have been architecture.
Really?
I was really into architecture in college, and then I checked it out, but it was a 5-year program. I thought, damn, 5 years. I don't think I can do that. So, so I didn't. But I really
Huh.
like structure and putting things together, and how does it work, and what could be better about it, and where's the site, and how do we situate the house or the building or whatever. And
Oh,
so
that's so cool.
I think that would be it. Yeah.
Joe Bergamini studied architecture.
Ah,
Our
hey,
good buddy
Joe. I
Joe.
haven't talked to him in a while.
Yeah, man. I interviewed him pretty recently. It was good
Oh
fun.
yeah, wow, that'd be cool.
Yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. We go
Uh-huh.
way back.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
um,
remember. Yeah, right.
favorite pizza topping? Go.
Uh, mushrooms.
Mushrooms.
I like the burger meat, even though it's not very Italian. It can be depending on what kind of they have. Chorizo is good,
Nice.
um, but I think mushrooms are my favorite.
Mushrooms pizza topping. You got that, guys? We probably got some guy in Brooklyn going like, "Hey, what about anchovies?"
Yeah, right.
Um,
No anchovy. That's the one I don't want. Nope.
what is
Anchovies.
what is one um, record or artist that people would be surprised to hear you say that you like? And
Well,
Gary
geez.
said sausage. um,
I mean, Bartok. I like Bartok. I mean, and that's pretty wild stuff.
Bartok is pretty avant-garde at
Yeah.
times.
I mean, I'm getting more into classical music now. Actually, I have a few favorites that I've always had, but he just grabs me right away. He's like, yikes, this guy is serious.
Yeah, man. Well, I love playing the Rite of Spring for students with Stravinsky's stuff, and
Right.
because it's like drums on 10, through a lot of that stuff. It's like the rock and roll of classical music.
There's this guy, Xanaxis, I think this is the name of this tune. I forget who was totally percussion, and when I heard that way back, and I was like, wow, this is. And then to think that they do that again and it sounds the same. Like
Right.
we were talking about earlier about composition. I mean, composition for percussion. Hey, I want to play whatever the hell I feel like playing. But that's another way of doing it. A whole other bag of classical music.
Right,
And
a whole nother thing.
have that happen. It's like, wow, what a bunch of organization. And
Oh my God.
time put in, write the notes out. And anyway, that's some other music that I like.
It would be fun to see, like an orchestra playing an improvised version of Mozart, like where everybody gets to improvise over
Yeah.
sections. Be like, wait, what is happening? Why is there comping going on? Oh my God.
I wonder what would happen. It's very different, when you talk to classical people and they're amazed that you can play whatever's in your head,
Yeah.
and we're amazed that they can play those complicated things like, perfectly.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I've had those conversations. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So let me.
Oh, wait a minute. I got one before I forget.
Oh yeah.
I want to thank Paiste Cymbals, who I've been with for many, many years, and great cymbals. I'm a hi-hat fanatic,
Yeah.
and so I've have a lot of different kinds of Paistes, and I love them. They really sharp, to come out well. This got a really old Paiste ride, which is also cool. DW drums. I mean, wow, you can't get better than that, and they've been really, really cool with me, as well as Remo heads.
Yep.
They have. I'm just recommending today. I had an old bass drum which I left with my friend Jerry Z in New Jersey, and Mike Clark is coming to play. They're going to have a rehearsal, and he needed a new head for his bass drum, which was my old bass drum. So I went through a bunch of things and power tone threes and pinstripes, and gave him some advice, and Vader sticks. So those guys have really helped me out a lot. Thanks a lot.
Vader is making some really good stuff. By the way, that's really funny that you just played that cymbal, because check this out. This is my new. I can't get it right now. All right, I won't get it right now. I have a new ride, a new Crescent hammer tone with 2 rivets in it that I love from Sabian. So I was going to mention my Sabian, but I got it over on my drum kit right now, so I can't grab it. But yeah, man, Jim, man, I have to say it was really a pleasure hanging and chatting.
Hey.
I mean, I could go on and talk. I think we covered a lot of stuff. I think maybe in the future I'm going to start having round 2s with people where we revisit and see what's been going on.
Sure, man.
What do you think? Are there any books in your future that you're going to write?
My wife keeps saying, "Why don't you write a book? You're sitting around here,
Hey, Steve Gadd just came out with Gaddaments, right? Steve Gadd just released his new book.
In fact, when I was back at Drummers Collective in New York, and I met Steve and we hung out some, we had planned to do a book, but it never. He was so busy, and it never happened. So
Steve
now
Gadd busy? What?
I know. So I'm very curious about this book, and I saw that it just came out. He's just he's an inspiration. When
Oh my God.
you look through his career, and anyway, he's a trip, and how he went through it. He learned how to read. I have to read. I have to do this. It was a textbook on how to do it, kind of, and people, meeting people, his friends, and when he came to New York, Mike Manera, these different guys, and they were together, and anyway, you got to get out there.
That's
You
it.
got to
man.
get out there and meet people, everybody, and meet people and make it happen, because Jim and I are counting on you.
That's right. That's right, man. Well, man, I have to say, like, this was super fun. You and I have spent a lot of time together over the last year, and I'm glad that we're reconnecting and doing our thing. And I'm sure I'll be
Great.
talking to you on a Zoom call very soon. By the way, Rick Potts saying thanks. Very educational. Thanks for hanging out, Rick. And,
Okay, thank you, man.
Yeah, man. And
All right.
Thanks to
Well, Jim-
everybody for hanging in the chat, and for the Jim and Jim show. My guest Jim Payne, and
Okay.
we'll talk to everybody real soon. And
Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks,
everybody
Jim.
be safe, be
We'll be in
creative,
touch.
and we'll talk to you real soon. Let me
Okay,
hit my
adios.
closing titles. See you soon.